What up YouTube, this is Frequent and you are watching video 3 of my sound design tutorial series. In this video I want to go over one of my all-time favorite plugins, and that is Granulator 2, which is a Max for Live device and it's free up on Ableton's site. I'll drop a link in the description. If you own Ableton, you can just go grab that at no cost and it's super badass. So yeah, the reason I love this plugin is you can get a whole world of sounds from virtually any source material, and you can sit there and mangle audio all day and never get the same sound twice. So I use this a lot for sound design, whether it's basses or atmospheres or just general glitches and textures. It's pretty unparalleled in my production as far as getting really crazy sounds really fast. So yeah, I kind of just want to jump into this. Before we do that, I'm going to show you the sample I'm starting with. I'll go ahead and chuck some other samples in there later, but this is the sample we're going to start with. It's just a random break, so here it is. Nothing that exciting, and I'm just going to go ahead and drop this into a default granulator. I'm going to group it because we're going to macro out a bunch of these functions here, and I just want to run through really quickly what all my favorite functions are, what they do, and why they're important. So first and foremost is the grain function, and this is the heart of this plugin, is the grain, obviously, because it's a granulator. So basically what this does is it takes a very small, or depending how you set this, it takes a section of your sound and it's going to loop it over and over and over again. And so this grain knob determines the length of the loop effectively, and the more you raise this, if you turn this right up, it's going to start affecting the pitch of the sample, because what's happening is you're creating basically a wavetable out of this sample and just looping a very small portion of it over and over and over again. And this is the basis for how wavetable synths works. So like Serum or Massive or anything like that is just taking a very small chunk of audio and looping it over and over. So you can get these tones out of the synth just from looping a small point, and you'll hear the pitch be affected as we change the screen. So to show you that. So that's that. Gonna go ahead and macro that out because we're definitely gonna be using that function, obviously. So the next thing is the file position, and if you watch my sampler tutorial before this one, you'll have noticed that you can't directly automate the file position in Sampler, which is a bummer. But fortunately, Granulator lets you do this, so we can scrub through this in real time and automate it, and you can hear you already get some really cool sounds just from scrubbing through. All sorts of really cool glitchy stuff. So I love this knob, definitely going to macro that out. Next one is the spray function. So this one's a little interesting. So basically, when you load up Granulator, it by default comes with 8 voicings. And so what that means is every time you hit a key, it's 8 layers of it are playing at once. And so this spray function, what it does is it actually allows the start points of each of those voices to be offset from the fundamental position. So the more we turn this up, the more each of these voices is allowed to deviate. So if we turn this up to almost 3 seconds, what you'll see is there will be all these voices jumping around, and it's randomized, but the maximum amount they're allowed to deviate from this initial start point is 3 seconds away. So you start to get all these little random blips scrubbing around the sample, and it actually visualizes that, which is really nice. But what you'll see is as I turn the spray down, all of the voices will slowly concentrate down into this one point. So to show you that. And you can see it all ended down in this one loop where they're all playing through at the same time. So spray knob is really interesting, but can be a little messy. Definitely worth playing with those. So we'll go ahead and macro that out to macro 3. There's a bunch of stuff I'm skipping over right now. The spread function is good. We're not going to use it in this instance yet. We might use it a bit later to add some stereo. But I'm not really trying to overview the whole plugin as much as the stuff that I have the most success with. So the next thing, and this is probably one of the coolest aspects to me, is the scan knob. And what this does is it, like a sampler now, if we enable this scan mode, it'll play through the sample at whatever rate you specify. So at 100%, it's just going to scrub right through this sample at its original speed. So what's cool is we can move this up to 10,000%, and basically it's time stretching the hell out of this sample now. And you can get really interesting effects from automating this too, so you can actually have it like jump really fast and then slowly stretch out one portion and then whip back and go really fast to another section. So this time knob is really, really powerful, and I always definitely use that. And I usually have scan enabled, although you can have some interesting effects from just manually moving the file position and stuff like that. I like to do both at the same time. You can get a lot of really cool stuff. And then the curve knob basically will put the time function on a curve. So I believe if you turn it down, it'll start really slow and then go really fast at the end. And then if you have it all the way up, it'll start really fast and then go slow at the end. But we're not going to automate this right now. I definitely have had success with this curve, and it's definitely interesting, but not necessary for what we're doing. We might look at it a little bit later, but I'm going to just leave that off for now. Next thing is the FM, and this is the last main function I want to go over. Like sampler, you can actually impose a wave onto the sample that you're using. And unfortunately, you can only use a sine wave. You can't like choose a wave like you can in sampler, which is really cool. But you can still get really good effects with it. It's done using frequencies instead of coarse and fine. So instead of choosing like 0.5 or 1 like we do in sampler, it's going to be a direct frequency that you're feeding in. And so I'm going to macro this out to 5 and 6. And so now we can introduce FM to the sound by just turning up this FM knob, which is really cool. So yeah, basically my method for doing stuff with Granulator is a lot different from sampler in that there's no way to really go for a specific result. I mean, I guess there is, but a lot of the best sounds you're going to get out of this are from experimenting with the sound you have in it. And so what I'll end up doing is just doing these very long sessions of granulization where it'll be like maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes of me just playing with all these knobs and hitting different notes. And what I'll do then is I'll either edit that down, or if I'm feeling lazy, I'll just drop the entire thing into my sample library and then go through later in my arrangement and just scrub through and try to find the most interesting moments to use. But really, there's no specific technique for how to use all these things. It's a lot of experimentation, but I just want to kind of show you guys how I use the plugin, and I think you'll get a good idea of how these sounds work once you sit down and really play with a lot of these same knobs. So I'm going to set up a resampling channel here. Holding command, I'm just going to enable ARM on both of these, and that's going to allow us to hit notes and also record at the same time. And really all I'm doing here, also another thing to keep in mind before we do this, if you want to keep the fundamental note the same, you can't actually change the note like you can in samplers. So if you want to play the same note as the sample you put in, you're going to want to hit a C3 key. So that's C3 I'm hitting right there. But you can also get really cool effects from going like on different notes, obviously different octaves. And so there's no real science to the exact note I'm playing. I'm just going to be experimenting with different octaves as I go, and you'll be able to see as it records out the MIDI all the different notes that I'm playing here. So you'll be able to see that visually, which is nice. But yeah, so I'm going to just dive into this here and start automating some of these knobs. And ideally what you'd have set up is some sort of MIDI controller. So for instance, I like to map all these to my MPD and do all these with physical knobs, which is really nice. But if you don't have access to a MIDI controller, or you're not into that or whatever, it's totally fine to just do it with a mouse. And so I'm going to show you guys using a mouse today so that anyone who has Ableton can do this. You don't need any sort of hardware for this to work. But being able to turn multiple knobs at once is definitely an advantage for this type of sound. Anyways, I'm going to shut up and just kind of start playing with this, and you'll be able to pick up pretty quickly the amount of different sounds you're able to get out of Granulator with this technique. So I'm going to hit record, and here we go. Yeah, so right off the bat, you can hear this sounds nothing like the sample we initially put in there, which is really cool. We were able to get something that sounds nothing like a drum break, and yeah, it's just really interesting the amount of different textures in here. If we kind of scroll through really fast, you can get these almost like bass tones even out of something like a drum loop. And these really intense, glitchy, sort of like, I don't even know how to describe that. It just has a very particular granular sound, and I really love these type of effects. These very otherworldly, sound designy sort of bits that are really hard to synthesize. Like, it'd be really hard to make a synth do that, and then once you had it doing that, you would never be able to have it get all these other functions at the same time. So without having to do any intense programming, really, we've gotten all of these really interesting noises. And really, it's very contextual the way you'd use these, obviously. Like, I'm getting a lot of people wanting me to go over how I'm using these sounds, and I'm definitely going to be making some tutorials on how to go back and arrange stuff like this later, because I know out of context it almost seems too experimental to use these noises, but it's not at all. They're actually very applicable and very useful to have. But yeah, so that was just a random example with a drum break. I want to show you guys a few other ways you can use Granulator to get different types of sounds. So this sort of textural thing is really interesting with drums, but if we extend that to a bass sound, then you can really start to get some intense stuff that has a lot of bass tonality, stuff that you would actually be able to use in a track. Or at least that seems more obvious to use in a track. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of these envelopes, so clear all envelopes of instrument rack, and then I'm going to go find a bass sample for us to use. So I'm actually going to use the same one that we used in the last tutorial just for consistency's sake. And then basically using the exact same functions, let's go ahead and do the same process again. I'm going to delete all this MIDI. Let's take a listen to it. Turn off the FM. It's pretty loud. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. Yeah, so same exact process. I'm just playing with these knobs. I'm going to do a lot of stuff with the time and try to show you how you can get those really interesting little like whips and movements using the time knob. But same stuff, I'm just really experimenting with all these things and seeing what sounds best. So here we go. Let's get some FM in here. Yeah, so if you do really low FM, you start to get this sort of vibrato effect, which I really like. I'm going to clear all these envelopes again. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Oops, that's also not what I wanted. Clear all envelopes of instrument Mac. So yeah, if we go down to a lower octave. It's really cool. Yeah, so let's start playing with the FM a little bit more. Yeah, so very cool sounds in there. Another thing to keep in mind, like, a lot of the stuff that you get out of this synth is gonna be trash, and it's just a matter of going and finding those unique moments that are really worthwhile. So yeah, I don't really know what else to give you guys for that. It's really just playing with all these different knobs and getting a feel for like how they affect the sound at different octaves. And yeah, I really just want to leave you guys to play with that, but I want to give you one last sort of sound you can really get out of here that is it's more of an atmospheric sound, so you can do all these really crazy, glitchy sort of things, which are my favorite sort of sounds to make with Granulator, but it's also really good for doing sort of atmospheric stuff. So I'm going to delete all of this. We'll go ahead and clear our envelopes again. Oh, are they already deleted? Cool. And then let's go ahead and grab just like some random shitty vocal one shot. I'm sure I have something.
All right, we're gonna keep this black. Check the.
Nope, not that shitty. We need some sort of like something like singy.
Oh no!
All right, sure, something like that. Man, that's a terrible sample, but whatever. So what you can actually do is create sort of a loop point that'll turn it into a drone sound. So what I like to do is I like to crank the time like we already have it cranked, find a pretty good grain position, and then I'm just going to experiment and try to find a good point where it sort of has like a droning vibe. It's already there. So, and we have a little bit of that vibrato from the FM, which I really like, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to add a bit of spray to this. And then I'm going to go over to this longer chunk here so we just have more space. Cool, so now what we can do is just grab any reverb. I'm going to use, my favorite reverb is this Valhalla Room. Has a horrible UI, but it sounds really good. So I'm going to just crank the mix right up, add a ton of decay time to this, add a ton of depth to this, and then I'm also going to compress it a little bit because we're going to lose a lot of volume from that. And you'll hear you immediately just start getting these like really nice pad sounds out of it. Here might be a good time to start adding some spread in. Very, very nice textures. And then, of course, you can start playing with these envelopes. So these are just regular amp envelopes. So we can have this, like, have a really slow attack and slowly fade in. So it sounds like... So yeah, guys, there's really no limit to the sort of stuff you can do with Granulator. I have a lot of fun just sitting there playing with all sorts of different types of sounds in it. I also have a lot of success dropping entire songs into here. Yeah, let's do that really quick just for sake of example. I'll do one more of these granularizations for you, just using a full track of mine. So let's go find, yeah, I might as well do something off the album. So let's grab like title track off my album. Just throw it in here. So we can actually, just using the exact same knobs over here, we can start getting all sorts of crazy stuff out of this entire track. So let me find, why is it not working? Come on. There you guys. Oh, it's because I have the attack way up. That's not the attack. That is the wrong thing. This is the attack. Yeah, so you get the idea. So if I were to sit here and just record out all these different chunks, so I'll do a brief one here. So cool. So all sorts of great stuff in there. And then what you do at the end is just consolidate. If you feel like going through and editing out all your favorite moments, I find that that can be a huge time saver later on. Or you can even just drag these right into your Finder or File Explorer or whatever. And I just have, like, for instance, I have a whole glitch pack of random. So these are all like cuts I took of different granulators. And then I also have like full granularizations, which have like all these different parts in them. So yeah, guys, that is Granulator. I hope you guys have fun with this plugin. It's really worth looking into. You can get lost in it for hours and hours, and you'll never find the same sound twice. Really good to play with. Really good to like give yourself an entire palette of sounds to work with in a sound design session, as opposed to just like a few seconds of bass. You get like this whole render of different sounds. And yeah, play with it. Have fun with it. Let me know what you guys think. Remember to subscribe to my shit, follow me, all that, and I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Cheers.